Let me tell you about the time I met my husband, Aaron. It was a regular Tuesday, and I was working at Marigold Fine China and Ceramics, surrounded by fancy dishes and glasses that cost more than my rent. The bell above the door jingled, and in walked a guy who seemed pretty out of place with his casual jeans and a t-shirt that looked like he might have worn it to a concert or something. "Hey, need a hand finding something?" I asked, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear as I approached him. He turned around, and yeah, he was kinda cute, not that I was looking. Yeah, thanks. It's my mom's birthday, and she's big on teapots and all that. I don't know where to start. I showed him around, pointing out some of our best sellers and the finer pieces that would make his wallet cry. He chuckled at my straightforwardness. "So, you're telling me that little pot is worth $1,000?" he asked, eyebrow raised as he picked up a delicate teapot painted with roses. "Believe it or not, yeah. It's hand-painted, limited edition," I explained, watching him carefully replace it. We spent a good half-hour chatting as we walked through the aisles. He had a good sense of humor, making jokes about how a single plate cost more than his weekly groceries. "I'm Aaron, by the way," he said, extending his hand. "Elise," I replied, shaking his hand. "So, Aaron, picked any favorites yet?" He nodded towards a set with gold trim and a subtle floral pattern. "That one? It's beautiful, and I think my mom would love it." "Does it come with a don't break me guarantee?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Afraid not. But it does come with a pretty fancy box." While I wrapped up his purchase, he glanced at his phone, then looked up at me. "Hey, this might sound weird, but can I have your number? You've been really helpful, and, I don't know, maybe I could get your advice on something else?" "Like what? More teapots?" I joked, handing him his bag. "Or maybe just a cup of coffee," he countered with a smile. I wrote down my number, still thinking he was just being polite. Guys like him didn't really go for girls like me, ones who spent their days selling overpriced china to people who had too much money. But the next morning, he called. The coffee date with Aaron wasn't just coffee. Turned out, the guy had a knack for making me laugh, and before we knew it, we were grabbing dinner instead of just a caffeine fix. "So, Elise, tell me something. How does someone with a no-bullshit attitude end up selling fancy plates to rich folks?" Aaron asked as he sipped his coffee, watching me over the rim of his cup. I shrugged, poking at my salad. "Gotta pay the bills somehow. Plus, it's kind of fun watching people freak out over which set of plates will impress their snooty friends more." He laughed, that hearty kind of laugh that made you want to join in. "Fair enough. You're pretty down to earth. I like that." The conversation flowed as easily as the coffee. We talked about everything, movies, books, our crazy families. He shared stories about his job as an architect, and I told him about my dreams of maybe opening a little cafe someday. "Wait, you cook?" he asked, eyebrows raised. "More like I bake. Cupcakes, pies, you name it. My grandma taught me," I confessed. Damn, a baker and a plate expert? That's some combo. It felt good, you know? Being with someone who got my kind of humor and didn't expect me to be anything but myself. We started seeing each other more and more after that night, movies, walks in the park, the occasional concert when we felt like splurging. One evening, a few months in, we were at his place, a modest but cozy apartment he'd designed himself. We were on the couch, a movie forgotten on the TV as we talked about our days. Today was nuts. This lady spent an hour deciding between two identical teapots. I mean, they were literally the same, Aaron. How does that even happen? I vented, still amused by the absurdity of it. He grinned, pulling me closer. Maybe she was just trying to make a perfect choice. Kind of like how I feel with you. That caught me off guard, and I looked up at him, trying to figure out if he was joking. But he was serious. "What do you mean?" "I mean, every day with you feels like I'm making the right choice. No second guessing, no regrets. It's easy with you, Elise." It wasn't just the words, but the way he said them, like it was the simplest truth in his world. That night, we kissed for the first time, right there on that couch, and it felt like everything just clicked. Months flew by, and soon a year had passed. Aaron and I were inseparable, and I knew I was falling hard. It was on our first anniversary that he surprised me. We went back to the same coffee shop where we'd had our first date. "Elise, I've got something for you," he said, handing me a small, beautifully wrapped box. Inside was a key. I looked up at him, puzzled. "It's a key to my apartment. I want you to move in, if you're up for it," he explained, his eyes searching mine for any hint of hesitation. I didn't need to think twice. Yes, I'd love to. And just like that, we started a new chapter together. Life with Aaron was as natural as breathing. He never made me feel like just a girlfriend, I was his partner, his equal. We had our moments, sure, like any couple. But even when we argued, it was never long before one of us was cracking a joke, breaking the tension. He loved my baking, always praising even my most disastrous attempts. "Elise, you could burn water, and I'd still eat it," he'd tease, and I'd throw a dish towel at him, laughing. That's how it was with us. No pretenses, no drama, just two people who got each other, building a life together one day at a time. When Aaron proposed, it was simple, no big dramatic gesture, just us on the couch with a ring and him saying, "So, you want to make this official or what?" I laughed and said yes, 100 times yes. The wedding planning flew by, thanks mostly to his mom, Judy, who was a saint. She helped me pick out the dress, the flowers, everything. Aaron's dad, Mike, was seriously ill with cancer, but he was hell-bent on being there. "Wouldn't miss seeing you in that dress for the world," he joked with a wink that made me blush and laugh. The big day was a blur of smiles and tears. Mike, pale but smiling, managed to make it. Every moment felt like something out of a dream, except for Aaron's sister, Claire. She was there, all right, dressed to the nines, and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. During the reception, I caught her eye, and she just rolled hers, whispering something to her husband who looked just as uncomfortable. It stung, but I wasn't about to let her ruin my day. After the wedding, things settled down. Or at least, they should have. I got on famously with Judy. We'd go shopping, walk around the neighborhood, or I'd just come over and help her around the house. It was during one of these days that Claire's true colors showed even brighter. One evening, we were all at Judy's for dinner. The house smelled like roast beef and the laughter was plenty, except from Claire, who seemed to have her nose turned up at everything. "Elise, dear, can you pass the salt?" Judy asked, her smile warm. As I reached over, Claire muttered loud enough for just me to hear, "Still playing the doting daughter-in-law? Trying to butter her up for the will, are you?" I paused, my hand mid-air, then passed the salt to Judy. "I'm just here to help, Claire. You should try it sometime." She scoffed, sipping her wine. "I don't need to try anything. I'm not the one who came from a little shop, trying to play high society." Her words were like a slap, but I bit back the anger. Aaron squeezed my knee under the table, his way of saying he was there for me. Later, when Judy went to bed, Aaron confronted Claire. "What's your problem with Elise? She's done nothing but good for Mom." Claire's face hardened. "You're blind, Aaron. She's here for what she can get. That's what these people do." "These people?" I snapped, unable to hold back. "You mean people who work for a living?" "Yeah, I was a saleswoman. So what? At least I'm not pretending to be something I'm not." Aaron stood up, his chair scraping back. "That's enough, Claire. If you can't be civil, maybe you shouldn't come around as much." Claire stormed out, her husband trailing behind her, throwing apologetic glances our way. Aaron and I cleaned up in silence. The next few months were tough. Mike's health declined rapidly. Despite the strain and sorrow, I tried to be there for Judy as much as I could. Mike passed away quietly one night, leaving us all a bit emptier. Aaron took it hard, and I did my best to support him, to be his rock. Claire, who'd been absent more often than not, suddenly turned up again, her eyes scanning the house like she was taking inventory. At Mike's funeral, she was tearful, playing the part of the grieving daughter, but her tears seemed as hollow as her previous accusations against me. A few weeks after Mike passed, Judy decided it was time to settle his affairs once and for all. She invited us all to dinner. As we sat around the dining table, the air thick with anticipation, Judy cleared her throat and unfolded a stack of papers. "I've got Mike's will here," Judy announced, her voice steady but soft. "He had some specific wishes about how things should be handled." Judy continued, "Half of everything goes to me, as we expected. The other half will be divided among Mike's future grandchildren." She paused, looking over her glasses. "And the firstborn grandson will receive a bonus of $200,000. Claire was practically vibrating in her seat. "Well, I guess that sets our priorities, huh?" she said, half joking but with a greed I hadn't seen so openly before. "Let's not make hasty decisions," her husband muttered, but Claire was already on a roll. "This means we start trying seriously, babe. It's important," she insisted, her voice tinged with desperation that didn't suit the dinner table. From then on, Claire's obsession with conceiving became the focal point of her life. Every family gathering, she'd update us on their progress, or lack thereof, with a frankness that bordered on uncomfortable. "We've been to 3 specialists this month alone," Claire complained one evening as we all tried to enjoy a quiet dinner. "Do you have any idea how much this is costing us?" Her fixation deepened when they moved on to artificial insemination. The hormonal treatments took a toll on her, physically and emotionally. She gained weight, which only fueled her frustration and desperation. Her struggles cast a shadow over our family meetings. Claire's obsession with getting pregnant overshadowed even simple conversations. It got to the point where I found excuses not to attend gatherings, especially if I knew she'd be there in one of her moods. Aaron tried to stay neutral, but even he was wearing thin. "She's my sister, but I can't deal with this every time we see them," he confessed one night as we lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "I know, love. Maybe give her some space? She's got a lot on her plate right now with all the treatments and pressure," I suggested, though I felt for Claire, her behavior made it hard to be around her. As time wore on, Claire's single-minded pursuit of motherhood began to isolate her, even from those who wanted to support her. All we could do was watch and wait, hoping that something would give, for better or worse. The day Claire announced her pregnancy should have been purely joyful. "I'm pregnant," she declared during a family brunch, her eyes scanning the table for our reactions. Aaron and I offered our genuine congratulations. "That's great news, Claire. Really happy for you guys," Aaron said, passing her a smile across the table. I nodded in agreement, trying to add warmth to the tense air. Despite our attempts at keeping things friendly, Claire seemed to brew a storm inside her, always ready to snap. Her mood swings were wild, and every small thing set her off. The family tiptoed around her, but I bore the brunt of her sharp tongue more than anyone else. I learned to keep my distance, but that was about to become harder. One morning, feeling unusually queasy, I took a pregnancy test. The positive result left me stunned and elated. I shared the news with Aaron, who was over the moon. "We're going to have a baby," I whispered, and we held each other, lost in our little bubble. We decided to share the news with Judy first, hoping for a moment of happiness amid the ongoing tensions. Walking into Judy's house, hand in hand, we found not only Judy, but also Claire, who'd apparently come over earlier. "Mom, Elise has something to tell you," Aaron began, his voice filled with pride. I smiled, a bit nervous about Claire's presence. "I'm pregnant, Judy. We just found out." Judy's face lit up with delight. "Oh, my darlings, that's wonderful. 2 grandchildren on the way." But Claire's reaction was far from congratulatory. Her face drained of color, and her lips thinned. "You planned this, didn't you?" she hissed, her voice low and menacing. "Trying to steal my thunder and my child's inheritance." I froze, shocked by her accusation. "Claire, that's not true. It just happened." Her voice escalated, and she stood, pointing a shaking finger at me. You're lying. This is all a setup. You want the money, that's all you've ever wanted. We should get a DNA test on that baby. Who knows if it's even Aaron's? Aaron stepped between us, his face dark with anger. Enough, Claire. I won't let you insult my wife like that. You owe Elise an apology. Claire scoffed, her cheeks flushed with anger or shame, I couldn't tell. I'm not feeling well, she muttered, grabbing her purse and storming out, leaving a stunned silence behind. Judy reached for my hand, her eyes sympathetic. Don't mind her, dear. It's just the hormones and jealousy speaking. I tried to smile, but Claire's words had cut deep. Tears spilled over, and I wiped them angrily. I just don't understand why she has to be so cruel, I murmured. The joy of our announcement had been overshadowed by Claire's outburst, and though Judy tried to smooth things over, the damage was done. The remainder of our visit was spent discussing baby names and plans, but Claire's shadow hung over us all. Judy called me up early on a bright Tuesday morning, her voice warm and inviting. Elise, dear, why don't you come over for coffee? I baked your favorite apple pie, she said, and I could almost smell the sweet aroma through the phone. Glad for a reason to get out of the house, I quickly agreed. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Judy. Can't wait. When I arrived, the house smelled heavenly, and Judy greeted me with a hug. Inside, to my surprise, Claire was there too, looking unusually quiet and almost shy. She even managed a small smile as I walked in. Elise, I want to apologize for last time, Claire said, her voice lower than usual. I was out of line. I've been dealing with a lot. Her apology, unexpected as it was, eased a bit of the tension I'd been carrying around. Thanks, Claire. Let's just move forward, okay? We settled at the kitchen table, the pie between us, its scent filling the room, inviting us to forget the awkwardness. Judy poured the coffee, and we started to chat about light, inconsequential things, Judy's garden, the weather, the little one on the way. Halfway through our second slice of pie, a headache began to pound at my temples, a common annoyance during my pregnancy. I must have winced, because Judy immediately noticed. You okay, dear? You look a bit pale. Just a headache, nothing new these days, I replied, trying to brush it off with a smile. Oh, I have just the thing, Judy said, rising from her seat. I have some headache medicine that's safe for pregnancy. Claire, honey, could you fetch it? It's in the medicine cabinet. Claire nodded and left to retrieve it, returning moments later with a pill and a glass of water. Here you go, Elise. This should help. I thanked her, swallowing the pill without a second thought, trusting Judy to know what was safe. But as I took the glass back to the kitchen to rinse it out, my eyes caught on something in the trash that sent a cold shiver down my spine. Among the usual rubbish, a discarded medicine package stood out, its label stark against the banana peels and coffee grounds. It was a chemotherapy drug, one that I instantly recognized from the time we had helped Mike through his treatments. Panic seized me as I remembered the clear warnings about its effects on pregnancy. Dropping the glass in the sink, I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. The operator picked up immediately, and I quickly explained what had happened. Ma'am, you need to try to purge that from your system immediately. Drink water and try to induce vomiting, the dispatcher instructed urgently. I turned the tap on full blast, gulping down glass after glass of water before kneeling in front of the toilet. As I forced myself to vomit, tears mixed with fear and betrayal stung my eyes. What was going on? How had this happened? My head was spinning, not just from the physical effort, but from the shock and betrayal I felt swirling inside me. When I finally managed to stagger out of the bathroom, the sight of Judy and Claire standing there, pale and confused, only intensified my feelings of unease. What on earth is going on, Elise? Judy's voice was filled with worry. Claire, on the other hand, looked like she was seeing a ghost, her face drained of all color. I found something in the trash, I managed to say between gasps. It was Mike's chemotherapy drugs. Claire, did you give me those? Before Claire could respond, I heard sirens outside. The EMTs burst through the door, their presence a small comfort in the chaos. As they started to check on me, I dialed Aaron's number with trembling fingers. "Aaron, I need you here," I choked out as soon as he answered. He was at my side within minutes, his face etched with concern. "What happened?" he demanded, looking from me to his sister and mother. I think Claire gave me something dangerous. Not just a headache pill. I found the chemo meds in the trash right after taking what she gave me, I explained hurriedly. Claire's reaction was immediate and defensive. "You're being dramatic, Elise. I just gave you what Mom told me to. Why would I do something to hurt you?" But her words didn't sit right with anyone, not with the evidence of the discarded medication packaging that was strictly for cancer treatment. Judy, struggling to keep up, finally said, "I told her to give you paracetamol, I swear." "Claire, please tell me you didn't. Why are we even discussing this? She's just trying to get attention." Claire interrupted, her voice rising in panic. That's when Aaron stepped in, his tone icy. "We're calling the police. We need to sort this out properly." Claire paled even further, if that was possible. "The police? Aaron, come on, think this through. She's making a mistake." But it was too late. Aaron had already dialed, and within moments, the police arrived, adding another layer of seriousness to the situation. They listened to our accounts, their expressions grim. "Ma'am, we'll need to take that package of medicine for fingerprints," one of the officers said after I pointed out the trash where I had seen the discarded drugs. Claire seemed to shrink with every word the police said, her earlier bravado draining away as quickly as her color. Meanwhile, the ambulance team decided I needed to be at the hospital for a thorough checkup and possibly more treatments to ensure no residue of the harmful drug was left in my system. It was a surreal couple of days following the hospital scare. Sitting in the living room, still trying to wrap my mind around the recent events, the phone rang. Aaron answered it, his face tightening as he listened. When he hung up, he looked at me with a mix of relief and sorrow. "They arrested Claire," he said quietly. "Her fingerprints were all over the medication package." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What did she say?" "She claimed she'd touched those meds before, just moving them around in Dad's room," Aaron continued, rubbing his forehead in frustration. "But Mom told the police that wasn't possible. She said those meds were kept in a locked cabinet ever since Dad got sicker. Claire never had access until that day." A few days later, we found ourselves in a courtroom, the air thick with tension. Claire looked pale, her eyes darting around nervously. During the trial, the truth spilled out in the ugliest of ways. Under the pressure, Claire confessed. She admitted to trying to harm our unborn child to ensure her position in the inheritance queue. The courtroom was in shock. To make matters even more shocking, it emerged that Claire wasn't even pregnant. She had fooled everyone with a prosthetic belly, plotting to eventually adopt a child from another state to pass off as her own. Her deception ran deep, and even her husband was kept in the dark, told that their non-existent intimate life during her pregnancy was to protect the baby. Thankfully, the doctors confirmed that my quick actions had prevented any harm to our baby. Claire was found guilty and sentenced to 3 years in prison. Judy, with tears in her eyes, requested the court to adjust Mike's will, cutting Claire out completely. The judge agreed, and just like that, Claire's ties to her father's legacy were severed. Her husband, unable to stomach her betrayal, filed for divorce. Even Judy, who had always tried to see the best in her daughter, couldn't find it in herself to forgive Claire's actions. Months later, our lives took a happier turn. I gave birth to a healthy, beautiful boy, who had my eyes and Aaron's smile. He was our miracle after a storm, a sign that life could indeed be beautiful. According to Mike's will, he received the promised $200,000, which we decided to save for his education. One morning, sitting back, I watched our son play, his laughter filling the room, a stark contrast to the darkness we had faced. Aaron wrapped his arms around us, a silent vow that as long as we were together, nothing could break us. "Everything ended well, didn't it?" I murmured, leaning back against him. It did, he confirmed, kissing the top of my head. It really did. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what came our way, the love of our little family would always be our strength. We had weathered the storm, and now it was time to enjoy the calm.